Hi, I'm Steve Smith. I'm introducing you to the 4 game changers. Any pastor, including you, can employ them. If you do, they will transform your church's health and its impact on your community. The first game changer is addressing unfinished business, which will deepen the spiritual life of your church. This critical need is often overlooked by churches who allow people to continue to be stuck in their faith or even stop pursuing God in intimacy. By helping them to address their unfinished business, you're recalling them to why they love God and how much He loves them and called them to be His very own. Unfinished business is at the root of why people are stuck. And unfinished business is simply whatever emotional, mental, or spiritual baggage people continue to carry after coming to faith. Everyone in your church, including your leaders, have unfinished business, and this is why it's so critical to the life of the church. Why is this a game changer? Well, first, it will allow you to guide people towards intimacy with God and away from ineffective and unproductive lives. When people aren't dealing with their unfinished business, it diminishes their desire to serve the Lord. It damages their ability to live together in harmony. It fills up your time with trying to motivate people who have lost sight of how Jesus is leading them in their lives. Secondly, since leaders lead from the inside out, this will change how they lead in the church. When people are damaged, they lead out of that damage, and they hurt the people that they're leading, they hurt themselves, and they undermine you as the pastor of the church. Dealing with unfinished business gives you a way of guiding people back to trusting in the work of the Spirit and back to understanding the purpose for which God called your church into existence. Dealing with unfinished business is really about taking hold of the gospel and applying it to our lives. Paul catches this in Romans 8:29 when he says, "For those whom God foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the likeness of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brothers." What Paul is saying is that God has already determined ahead of time that He is going to conform yours and my life to Jesus. This is the transformational nature of the gospel, and this is how the gospel trumps unfinished business. How do we get people there? Let me introduce you to a powerful tool called the Heart Chart. This tool is simple to use and understand because it tells every person's story, but it also draws them into a deep personal examination of what they need to surrender to God in order to receive healing and freedom. What we see when we look at others or in the mirror is outward symptoms of our inward turmoil. These symptoms are attitudes, beliefs, and actions that are not in keeping with the character of Jesus. While it is easy to think that these are the problems people have, they really point to deeper issues of the heart, the place according to the Bible where we make life decisions. And our hearts contain 2 items that they were not created for. The first step in helping people address their unfinished business is to ask them, where are these symptoms coming from? It does no good to just urge them to stop thinking or acting the way they do. All transformational journeys start with confessing that I am a mess and knowing where this mess comes from. The mess that needs to be rooted out is partly due to the presence of hurt in the heart. Because of the fall, humans now live in a difficult world of our own creation where people live for themselves, wounding one another deeply and passing on these wounds from generation to generation. The second thing in our hearts because of the fall is sin. Paul explains in Romans 7 that he's confused about his behavior, not doing the good that he should and continually doing bad things he hates. Looking inside, he sees sin at work in him. Sin in me can be defined by the ancient list of deadly sins. They're deadly because they rob us of life: anger, appetite, greed, lust, envy, sloth, pride. Each offers us a false comfort, but not healing, for whatever pain we have experienced in life. Here is where the heart chart helps people understand their symptoms more clearly. We have chosen sin to comfort the hurt of the heart we carry inside. Sin and hurt bond together to produce the outward symptoms we and others can see. If we're immoral or religious, we may try to manage the symptoms so that they don't mess up our lives. But when overwhelmed with dealing with the stress of life, we often turn to one or more of the symptoms as a comfort activity. Without realizing it, we can slip into addictive behavior and lose control of these symptoms so that they now falsely define who we are. Addiction causes us to start wounding ourselves. We start losing things we do not want to lose: marriage, respect, health, friendships, jobs, and so forth. As we experience these losses, we comfort ourselves with more sin, which leads to a deeper addiction, which leads to more wounding. We find ourselves in a vicious cycle, trapped more and more deeply as time goes by. If we do not address our unfinished business, we can come to a point of going into a death spiral, losing everything, and living in fear and despair, a shadow of the person we were created in Christ to be. The question that Jesus brings to us at all points of this inner mess is, do you want to get well? A person has to answer this question if he or she is going to enter a transformational journey towards healing and freedom. Only Jesus can fix our lives. Only He has the power to heal the hurt of the heart and deliver us from the addictive power of sin and me choices we have made. There is nothing else, no counseling, no seminar, no person that can set someone free from unfinished business. This is the most critical point. The heart chart is leading us to the discovery of what the hurt we have comforted with the sin in me choice that we need to surrender to Jesus. What we have learned in training others is that people will not choose to trust Jesus with their unfinished business without pursuing intimacy with Him first. Intimacy is gained by practicing the spiritual disciplines of rest, which is being with Him without an agenda. Secondly, appropriation, which is taking hold of what He has already given you through the cross and resurrection. And thirdly, meditating on the love of Christ, which teaches our hearts not to be afraid of Him. Why address this game changer? Unaddressed spiritual life issues give Satan a wide open opportunity to destroy your church. He knows how and when to exploit unfinished business in your life, your leaders' lives, and in the lives of the people you pastor. This is why it's the first game changer. It deepens people's trust in Jesus so that Satan cannot destroy them. I worked with a church whose pastor had been working hard to refocus the vision of the church since he arrived several years before. But after investing a lot of time, prayer, and effort, nothing had changed. People were still leaving the church, and those who stayed really did not care. As we explored the reason for this, I helped him to see that the church had had a number of previous pastors who had been abusive or had sinned very publicly. The congregation had absorbed this for years, and no one had addressed this unfinished business with them, much less their own personal issues. He immediately took steps to start discipling his leaders and others to deal with their deep spiritual life issues. The church became a different place, and people were then able to come alive to how God wanted to use them to reach their community. Church Equippers trains pastors and leaders how to disciple people to deal with unfinished business by pursuing intimacy with God. If you do not know how to help your congregation to do this, explore our website for more information. In the next video, I'll tell you how to identify your most valuable ministry partner.